We thank the Allegheny Law Library for this magnificent venue, and Patty Horvath and Lori Hagan for their tremendous assistance and partnership. We have collaborated with the Allegheny Law Library to hold a number of community education programs in the past year, discussing many varied topics, including protection from abuse, landlord-tenant, and estate planning, to name a few. In fact, tomorrow, PMC, Allegheny Law Library, and the Carnegie Law Library will be holding a court basics education workshop at 12:30 p.m. And on Thursday night, we are holding a family law education workshop at the Bethel Park City Council Chamber in collaboration with the Bethel Park and Monroeville Public Libraries. Judge Nicola Henry Taylor and Morgan, I'm gonna hopefully not butcher this, Bonakovich, will be co-presenting, for which we are grateful. Judge Taylor, prior to her being elected as a judge, was a member of our advisory board. We congratulate Judge Nicola Henry Taylor on being part of a historic 2021 Allegheny County judicial election in which 4 African-American judges were elected to the Court of Common Pleas. As I mentioned, this has been an interesting and exciting year for PMC. We have had the opportunity to expand our outreach and programming across the Commonwealth, focusing this past year in Allegheny County. We've also implemented a bail watch program in Allegheny County, and the MDJs have been very welcoming and helping us educate our volunteers. We've been active in speaking up for the independence of the judiciary. In collaboration with the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh, Rob Beyer and I presented virtually to over 150 Pennsylvanians on the threats to the independence of the judiciary. There are a number of proposed constitutional amendments which are engendering this danger. The one most pressing is House Bill 38, which supports the election of Pennsylvania's appellate court judges by geographical district. Right now, legislature's out of session with a preoccupation on the primaries. However, this proposal will not vanish as a threat until the next legislative term begins. So we will keep you informed, and please check our website regularly. Our appellate PMC was created over 35 years ago as a result of the Beck Report's findings of a crisis in the public's confidence in our court system. Tonight, we have the good fortune, special good fortune, to have 2 former PMC CEOs with us to make presentations. I personally am very appreciative of their leadership and guidance, which they have provided to PMC and to me. Additionally, we have a robust and ambitious program tonight, so I apologize ahead of time for any attempt I might make to keep the program moving forward. I've been known to interrupt people, so speakers beware. I am also going to ask that those of you here with us turn off the Wi-Fi on your cell phone, as this is an old building and we are Wi-Fi challenged, and we want to make sure that our virtual presenters and audience are able to participate to the fullest extent. So to start off our program, I want to thank Paul Saint-Antoine and Figre Drinker, Biddle, and Reith for their sponsorship of our law student writing competition. As you will hear, each year the PMC's advisory board picks an essay topic for Pennsylvania's law school students to write, on which to write. I will hand this over to Paul to tell you about it further and introduce the winner. Okay, so now here's the challenge. Where's Paul?
Right here, Debbie.
Perfect.
Thank you, Debbie, and good evening, everyone. Each year, I look forward to reading the submissions for the PMC student writing competition, which provide fresh perspectives on important issues for the judicial system. And this year was no exception. The topic was, under existing rules for judicial conduct, how might Pennsylvania's courts utilize current communications tools, such as social media, to engage the people of Pennsylvania, to instill confidence in the workings of the judicial branch and its decisions. The winning submission made a compelling argument that with all the social media tools available in our internet age, courts should look for more ways to provide access to a public that's become accustomed to speedy access to a wide range of important information. Internet platforms provide the means to move past traditional one-way communication from courts to people, with the author's hope that with more two-way communication, a more actively engaged public will be both better educated about and have more confidence in the judicial system. With that introduction, please join me in congratulating this year's winner of the student writing competition, Constance Hope Long, who will be graduating in 2 weeks from the Rutgers School of Law. Congratulations, Constance.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the congratulations. My name is Constance Hope Long. I am a third-year law student at Rutgers Law School in Camden, New Jersey, but I live in Philadelphia, and I've lived here for about 7 years. I am so pleased and honored to be here with you all in support of Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts and their incredible work. I'm extremely grateful for this award and to Faegre, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith for sponsoring the essay competition. This year's topic was a great opportunity for me to really reflect and delve into how Pennsylvania courts interact with the public and the practical ways that our judicial system can use every tool at its disposal to improve that interaction and make courts more accessible for English speakers, non-English speakers, and the public at large. I've admired PMC, and I've actually used a lot of their work and the materials that they produce throughout my law school career. So I want to end my brief moment to say thank you to them, not only for this award, but also for the really impactful work that you all do to make real justice accessible in Pennsylvania. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Hope. Next, we shall hear from Lynn Marks, who is speaking, who is going to help us honor the memory of Paul Titus. Paul is a legend to Pennsylvania, to attorneys, to Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts, and I'm hoping we have Lynn. Do we have Lynn? Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you, Debbie, and congratulations to Judge Smith and to Constance for your well-deserved honors, and greetings to my inspiring friend, Judge Berkeley Clark, and of course, hats off to Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts for your critical work. I am so honored to honor Paul Titus tonight. Those of you who knew Paul know he was a gem, a one of a kind, as Tim Lewis has said, a beautiful soul. I'm also glad that his wife Bonnie and grandson Paul are here on Zoom. I know he adored both of you. When I was hired at PMC in 1990, Paul was the first person I contacted in Pittsburgh for the lay of the land. He seemed to know all the movers and shakers out there and doers, and more importantly, they knew him. Judge Phyllis Beck and I went to Pittsburgh many times, that was before Zoom, to meet with Paul, so to put together a list for an advisory board in southwestern Pennsylvania, which ended up being chaired by then Duquesne Chancellor John Murray and coordinated by Professor, then later Judge Maureen Lolly Green. And if you're there, thank you. That advisory board met about three times a year for 2 decades. And I don't think Paul missed, and I don't think he ever missed a meeting. There was also an active advisory board in southeastern Pennsylvania, chaired by then Superior Court Judge Edmund B. Spaeth Jr., and a central Pennsylvania advisory board chaired by Frank Haas. In 2009, in the midst of the Kids for Cash scandal, Paul Titus was appointed to be outside counsel to the Judicial Conduct Board. So he no longer was wearing his PMC hat. And so we did sometimes disagree, and publicly so. But we agreed to respect each other's positions and each other, and that's just who Paul was. He showed that you didn't have to be loud to be heard. He didn't seek or need the limelight. People knew his impact on the whole arena of justice. He was wise and gentle, a good listener, and always spot on his insights. In honor of Paul Titus, PMC has renamed its PMC Shares Criminal Court Workshop to become PMC Shares Paul Titus Criminal Court Workshop. The workshop educates Pennsylvanians about their rights in the court system so that they can better advocate for themselves and their communities. PMC resolution states why PMC is honoring Paul in this way. And his name change is because, or the name change to the workshop is because Paul, quote, tirelessly defended the rights of those wrongly convicted of crimes through his pro bono work, including protecting attorney-client communications for incarcerated people, representing a man wrongly convicted of 4 murders and condemned to death, and working to ensure that everyone could have access to legal assistance and education. So Paul will be remembered by PMC for his leadership in helping PMC expand, but even more, Paul's going to be remembered for his being an extraordinary lawyer, colleague, friend, family person, just a great guy. The world is a better place because of him. I'm sorry I'm not with you tonight. Again, congratulations.
Thank you, Lynn, very much. I now have the great privilege of introducing our keynote speaker, the Honorable Kim Berkeley Clark. Judge Clark is truly a trailblazer as the first African-American to serve as President Judge of the 5th Judicial District. She was appointed to the bench by Governor Ridge, whom we honored along with 4 other past Pennsylvania governors at last year's spring benefit, and she has been reelected twice. She is the first judge and first African-American woman to serve as the president of the Allegheny County Bar Association, a job I know is not easy. She, in addition to her being a president judge, which is not easy, she has served as the past president of the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network, past president of the Pennsylvania Conference of Trial Judges, chairperson of the Pennsylvania Juvenile Court Judges, just to name a few of the many leadership positions she has had. As administrative judge of the Family Division and continuing to the present, Judge Clark has worked to develop a trauma-informed courthouse, which has focused on providing supportive services and resources to litigants, reducing the adversarial nature of the court, and assuring that courts don't re-traumatize people. Judge Clark is passionate about assuring procedural justice, that people have confidence in the courts and the process, that their voice is being heard, and that people understand what has happened. She has emphasized that the result shapes the public's opinion as to whether our justice system is fair, transparent, open, and impartial. Judge Clark's innovation and leadership, which she attributes to collaboration, was recognized by the National Center for State Courts when they awarded her the William Rehnquist Award for Judicial Excellence in 2017. It is the highest honor bestowed on a state court judge. In her acceptance speech, Judge Clark spoke of the importance of judicial independence and her concern that this independence is under attack or being whittled away. Recognizing that in making judicial decisions, there is likely a winner and a loser, but possibly that neither side is satisfied. Nevertheless, Judge Clark stated, it is important for all citizens to know and to believe that regardless of their political standing, their political power, their race or ethnicity, their gender or gender identification, their religion or economic status, that they have equal access to justice. This strong interest to protect the public's confidence in the judiciary was extremely evident by Judge Clark's hard work over the past 2 years. She and her team issued over, hopefully we're okay, she and her team issued over 40 emergency orders addressing public access, news media access, due process rights, and other statutory and constitutional protections, all while balancing the health and safety concerns of inmates, court participants, citizens, and businesses. Her orders covered the use of advanced technology by the court system, the stay of evictions, and the reduction of the jail population. Your Honor, we very much appreciate the many difficult decisions you have made the delicate balancing of interests you have considered, and the spectacular results you have and continue to achieve. We thank you so very much and welcome you to PMC's Spring Benefit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Deborah. And it is really an honor and privilege for me to be here tonight as your speaker, particularly because Judge D. Brooks Smith is going to be presented with the Justin M. Johnson Award and the honoring of Paul Titus. These are all icons in the law from southwestern Pennsylvania, and I feel very honored to be a part of this this evening. So I want to begin with the words of Amanda Gorman. Many of you, or all of you, probably know that she was the poet that presented at President Biden's inauguration. So this is an excerpt from her poem, The Hill We Climb. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We brave the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and that norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. So recent events in our nation, including the many shootings of unarmed Black men by the police, the many attempts to suppress the rights of the poor and disenfranchised to vote, the insurrection on the United States Capitol, the mass incarceration of men and women in our country, the racial and ethnic disparities that exist in education, housing, law, and employment, and the effort of many to silence those of us who want America to atone for the atrocity of slavery, has resulted in a lack of faith in our justice system. These events have also led me to the decision that the court must consciously and publicly address the waning public confidence in our justice system amidst the growing and compelling evidence that persons of color are at greater risk of death or serious bodily injury at the hands of the police, that they're more likely to land in the child welfare system and are more likely to languish in the juvenile and criminal justice systems than other persons. These concerns raise questions of whether our justice system in the United States of America is actually fair, whether the citizens of our country perceive that our system of justice is fair, and whether, despite our best efforts, our system of justice is replete with racial and ethnic disparities or operates under the cloud of systemic racism. And while judges have a duty to uphold the law, and in many cases impose sanctions and consequences on those who violate the law, we have an equal duty to promote public confidence in the judiciary as an independent and unbiased institution. This means that we must undergo an ongoing and critical evaluation of how we administer justice. It means we must openly acknowledge and address our flaws rather than rely on the powers and privileges that may allow us to turn a blind eye to them. Please understand that our history is calling us to work collaboratively and inclusively to make positive changes in the justice system that will benefit all citizens. Engraved above the front entrance of the United States Supreme Court building is the phrase, equal justice under law. The words stem from the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which was adopted on July 9th, 1868, in the wake of the Civil War, and which, among other things, granted citizenship to former slaves. This phrase has shaped American jurisprudence and is considered the gold standard of justice. But despite the ratification of the 14th Amendment, our history has demonstrated that justice has not always been equal for many Americans, particularly for racial and ethnic minorities, for women, for the disabled, for those who do not fit into what society has decided are traditional gender roles, and for those living in poverty. And so what we need to do is ensure that we develop a justice system that not only contains equality, but ensures equity. To truly achieve justice, the proverbial scales of justice must be balanced. So we must take into account the uneven playing field on which racial and ethnic minorities, women, those who do not squarely fit into traditional gender roles, and other disadvantaged persons and the poor enter the justice system. The public must see members of our local judiciary and court staff working with urgency to attain this goal and equal solidarity with them and other justice-related institutions and with each other. Courts all over the United States have been working hard to address some of these issues. Utilization of diversionary programs to prevent entry or deep penetration into the criminal and juvenile justice systems, treatment and problem-solving courts, language access plans, the collection and analysis of data to inform our decisions, and expunction and sealing of records are example of these efforts. We have made progress for sure, but our struggle is ongoing, and it may be difficult to know where to begin in the quest to create a system of equal justice for all. So I propose that we begin with two concepts to work towards a justice system that is both equal and equitable. The first is really quite simple and easy to achieve, and that is we must treat everyone that enters the justice system with dignity and respect. In my courtroom, I have a sign over my bench that says, everyone in this courtroom will be treated with dignity and respect, no exceptions. It's there to remind everyone in that room, in my courtroom, that this is how we operate under the premise of dignity and respect. I have been told that for some, that sign eases some of the anxiety associated with court, and for others, it helps them to believe that the playing field is more level. In other words, they believe that they actually have a chance with their cases. The second concept is that of procedural justice. So in other words, we must understand that the public's perception of justice or their perception of fairness impacts their court experiences. The four pillars of procedural justice are fairness, voice, transparency, and impartiality. And it's in a system where procedural justice is applied, we know that litigants are more likely to accept the decisions of the court, they're less likely to file appeals, and actually more likely to abide by court orders. So fairness and impartiality. Of course, we must be fair. We must be impartial. That goes without saying. And we all think that we are fair, but are we? Implicit bias is something that we all have, and it unconsciously impacts our decision-making. So all of us need to take a critical look at our data, and an examination of our own biases can go a long way to making our decisions more fair and more impartial. Voice. Those involved in our court system need to have the opportunity to be heard and to know that they actually have been heard. It's really important. It's really disheartening when people sit in a courtroom all day and no one ever asks them what they want or what they're feeling. So lawyers must make sure that their clients have the opportunity to appropriately tell their story, and judges must actively listen to what the parties and witnesses are saying, and then openly acknowledge that they heard and considered their testimony and their positions, and then explain how the testimony and the evidence factors into the judge's decision. Transparency. There is a reason that courts are generally open to the public. The public's right to know and their right to hold judges and the system accountable is crucial to the foundation of justice. As a judge, I am nothing more than a public servant. After all, I am paid by the taxpayers. These are the people who enter our courtrooms and courthouses every day, the taxpayers. And I have decided that I work for them. And therefore, I must hold myself accountable to them, the taxpayers, the citizens, the litigants. I must hold myself accountable to them in the way any other employee would be accountable to his or her employer. When I do this, people perceive that the system is fair. They believe that I am impartial. They know that they have had the opportunity to be heard and that I heard them. And they know that the system is theirs, that it is open and transparent. And regardless of the decision, they know that our system of justice is the greatest in the world. I am very proud to serve as a judge and as the president judge of the 5th Judicial District. And I am very thankful for the opportunity to work every day with judges and lawyers who are so deeply committed to public service. But we must continue to examine our processes and our procedures to demonstrate our commitment to equal justice under law and to keep us squarely on the path that will enable us to reach the goal. We must do our best to earn and to keep the respect of the public and to hold ourselves accountable to the public that we serve. I would like to conclude with a poem that I wrote last year, I guess sort of in celebration of Juneteenth, but that really kind of goes to the heart of what the public is feeling right now. It's called There's a Knee to My Neck. There's a knee to my neck and I can't breathe. It feels like a noose. Should I flee, fight, or freeze? Why does the color of my skin inspire such hate? Do they really believe that I want to occupy their space? All I want is what I deserve, my due. Life, liberty, and happiness is what I want to pursue. What do you see when you look in my face? Do you see my intelligence? Can you see past my race? Why do you fear me? I've done nothing to you. Truth be told, you will never fear me more than I fear you. There's a foot on my back and I can't breathe. I feel my life slipping away. I don't understand your cruelty. Since 1619, my people have been enslaved in this land of the free and the home of the brave, whipped, raped, and starved, shackled and chained 400 years and nothing has changed. Why do you look at me with scorn and disdain? Can you see my hurt? Can you feel my pain? The way you see me, I can never see you. Despite your hate, I see the human in you. There's a hand to my head, my face on the ground. You beat me when I'm up and kick me when I'm down. Emancipation, proclamation, equal rights. Ha, what a joke. You set us free and then put our heads in a yoke. Shackles of slavery have now been replaced with the shackles of systemic racism for the Black and brown race. You got scared when you saw us, you envied our progress. So along came Jim Crow to knock us down low. But resilient we are, we rose up from the ground, but you came back with new laws to knock us back down. There's a hand crossed my mouth, you dare silence me. You're scared if the world discovers our shameful history. Lynchings were common right into the 60s, sporting events for children and families. Tulsa, Rosewood, dozens of massacres, thousands slaughtered by Satan's ambassadors. Murder based on lies, remember their names. Don't forget our history, say them again and again. Till, Floyd, Martin, Taylor, and Gamage, Rose, Arbery, so many more, such damage. There are cuffs on my wrists and I can't move. What did I do wrong? What are you trying to prove? Despite our successes, we still must work harder to get to the top of the professional ladder. But we're not so different, you and I. We all want to achieve and we all want to fly. Our common thread stems from African soil, so why not stand together as we live, play, and toil? So please see in me the beauty of diversity that we need to embrace for true equality. There's a pain in my heart and it's hard to cope, but even in this racist world, I still have hope. The world will be better if we can make them see the beauty and power of diversity. So please fight for me and fight with me to help move this world to true equity. Because if you don't help, I can promise you this, others will join us to help move this ship into the safe harbor of equal justice under law. And it might just be you who now slips and falls with a knee to your neck and you can't breathe, wishing you helped and responded to our pleas. There's a knee to my neck and I can't breathe. It feels like a noose. Should I flee, fight, or freeze? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Honor. And now we have Maida Malone, my former CEO.
Good evening, everyone. What a pleasure it is for me to be here with all of you in person and to have the enviable task of introducing Judge D. Brooks Smith, a jurist whom I admire deeply and a cousin whom I adore. It would take the full 3 minutes I've been allotted, and Debbie's not going to give me any more than that, to do justice to Brooks' resume, so I'm going to have to be brief. It all began in Altoona, my mother's hometown, where Brooks was born in 1951. A child of Pennsylvania, Brooks was educated at Franklin and Marshall College and Dickinson School of Law, now Penn State Dickinson Law. Before joining the judiciary, he was in private practice in Altoona from 1976 until 1984, during which time he served as Assistant District Attorney of Blair County, as Special Assistant Attorney General of Pennsylvania, and finally as District Attorney of Blair County from 1983 until 1984. His judicial career, one for which he was surely born, began in 1984 when he became a judge of the Court of Common Pleas of Blair County, where he remained until 1988, when he was nominated by Ronald Reagan to a seat on the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania. He served on that court as chief judge from 2001 until 2002, when he was appointed by George W. Bush to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. During his tenure on the circuit court, he also served as chief judge from 2016 until 2021, and recently he assumed senior status. Although given his current workload, it's not easy to tell that he's in senior status. I will leave to history and to others to regale you with Brooks' many, many accomplishments as a judge. I'm here to speak to his relationship with PMC and our shared commitment to the judiciary. Call it kismet, call it luck, call it fate. One day, I made my way to the federal courthouse in Philadelphia for my first meeting with Judge Smith. I wanted PMC to grow its relationship with the federal judiciary, and I was thrilled when Margaret Wygant set up a meeting for me with the judge. When he greeted me, I liked him instantly. I think everybody does. We shared our love of and admiration for the late Judge John Gary, Chief Judge of the District of New Jersey, for whom I clerked and whom Brooks knew well as a colleague. It was comforting to know that we were both members of the Third Circuit family. And then we quickly came to realize that we are members of the same family, literally. I spent my early childhood visiting Altoona to see my grandparents. When Brooks mentioned that he lives in Altoona, I began telling him of my fond memories of the town and my grandparents, and he asked me what the family name was, and I told him, Blyler. He was shocked and said, I'm a Blyler too. And as it turned out, Brooks' grandmother and my grandfather were siblings, and close ones at that. And our parents played together as children. I have a newspaper clipping describing a family reunion picnic where our parents and grandparents are prominently featured. And that young boy in the photograph with my mother that hangs in my bedroom is, I believe, Brooks, none other than your dad. It was a moment of such significance for me, looking at Brooks' face and seeing such a strong resemblance to my mother, whom I had just lost, and to my grandfather. And for him too, I think, to see our aunt's Welsh features and complexion mirrored in mine. As for why it took us 65 years to meet, well, that's a long story and one for another day. But I will be forever grateful to PMC for bringing me together with Brooks, not only because he is a long-lost cousin, but because he is one who shares my passion and PMC's passion for judicial independence and has committed his professional life to it. He is a person whose decisions, behavior, and demeanor are the best examples of what we mean when we talk about an independent, ethical, and committed judiciary. PMC benefited from Brooks joining in our programming. He and I had a fireside chat at the Free Library of Philadelphia about judicial independence, and from his encouraging other federal judges to participate actively in our Law School for Journalists program and in other PMC in the community programming. Knowing him as I do now, I have no doubt at all that the work he has done to this point and will continue to do will remain at the heart of PMC's efforts to advance a strong, independent judicial system in our Commonwealth. And now, it is my great pleasure to welcome Senior Judge Theodore McKee of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, who will present the award to Judge Smith. The Judge Justin Johnson Award is named to honor Judge Johnson, who was the second African-American appointed to Pennsylvania's Superior Court and was beloved by all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I must say, despite the gray beard and the very sparse hair in my head, I'm not yet senior. I'm still active, Judge. I hope to take senior status before the end of the summer when my successor is confirmed. She is tied up in the earthly black hole known as the Senate Judiciary Committee. Once she achieves the escape horizon and gets beyond the event horizon, I guess it is, of the black hole and confirmed, I will then become senior. I must say two things I want to say before I begin. Brooks often chastises me for being, I'll say, rude to his vicinage, Altoona. But I'm now more convinced than ever that everyone in Altoona is related to one another. And so all those things I had assumed about Altoona, I've just heard evidence that suggests that, Brooks, I'm not being mean to you. I'm just kind of stating something that I kind of intuitively felt, but I wasn't quite sure until a few minutes ago when I realized everybody's a cousin in Altoona. But I also want to give a shout out to someone whom I have such tremendous respect for. I'm going to embarrass the hell out of her, but that's just fine, because I almost never get a chance to recognize her for her incredible accomplishments to the judiciary, to the rule of law. And that's obviously, everybody knows I'm talking about Lynn Marks. Lynn is, I can't remember how many years ago I met her, but I'm so glad our paths have crossed. I have such tremendous respect for Lynn and for all she has done for the judiciary and for the rule of law and for the independence of the judiciary. So Lynn, I know you've received honors and accolades over the years, not nearly enough, and I hope you receive many more. Brooks, your approach to being a senior judge is something I do not intend to emulate. When I become senior, there's so many things I want to do with my time. Hopefully, the spare time that I will have. It will not be taking on a heavy-duty caseload or course load, although the caseload probably will come. But your continued involvement in the court just goes to show how much the court means to you and how much you mean to the court. Brooks, you're like, I think you know this, you're like a brother to me, and I have such affection and respect for you. And it goes far beyond our judicial bond. It arises out of who you are and the person that I know you to be. You're so very deserving of an award named after a jurist whom you so recently told me you have such tremendous respect and regard for. So maybe this is just serendipitous after all, and just it's things coming full circle that you're now getting the Justin Johnson Award. I know of no one who deserves it more than you. Your contribution to the judiciary and the rule of law is inestimable. You've been, as has already been mentioned, chief judge of two courts, both my own, our own, the Third Circuit, as well as the Western District Court. You have been chair of the Space and Facilities Committee of the U.S. Judicial Conference. That is a task which I can't think of anything which is less rewarding and more onerous than being chair of a committee where your basic job is to say to very powerful and egotistical people, i.e. chief judges of various circuits throughout the country, your job is to say to them, No. You took the job with an understanding and an agreement with the Chief Justice that you would reduce the footprint of the judiciary by 3%, thereby saving millions of dollars to the citizens of the United States, to the people of the United States, not just the citizens of the United States. And through your tireless efforts, that savings goal was exceeded by far. And it was exceeded by your, as I said before, suggested being the bad guy. When a chief judge of a circuit came to you and explained why a certain allocation for new chamber space was needed or why a new courthouse was needed, your response was basically no. And it wasn't a reflexive response where the need could be justified and it could be established consistent with fiscal responsibility and the objectives that the Chief Justice had set out. That was different. One example that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if I kicked this one up to you, it came to me when I was Chief Judge of the circuit. One of my colleagues wanted to, in remodeling his chambers, put in a wooden parquet floor. And the estimate for the floor was $4 million. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but you can't. Have you looked at a rug, a good rug? And we worked out an agreement, but I knew in the back of my mind that if I encountered hostility or pushback, I'd say, look, take it up with Brooks. He's the National Chair of the Space Committee. If you don't want to be guided by what I'm telling you, see if Brooks will authorize the expense, because I knew that you would not. Your leadership over the judiciary has been such that both Chief Justice Rehnquist and Chief Justice Roberts appointed you to national committees. Chief Justice Roberts appointed you to the executive committee of the United States Judicial Conference. And few who have not served on the judicial conference, will understand how incredibly important that is. You're one of a very small handful of judges who regularly meets with and consults with the Chief Justice of the United States to set judicial policy, to bring together issues that arise from the various committees of the Judicial Conference, and to advise and consult with the Chief Justice of the United States. It's a monumentally important position, and it's a monumentally important honor, and you so justly deserve that. But your leadership has not only been recognized as it is today by the Judge Johnson Awards that the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts have given you. Very recently, as many there may know, the lobby of the federal courthouse in Pittsburgh was named after none other than D. Brooks Smith, and it's such a fitting honor. The courthouse is named after a very respected member of our court, somebody who I was able to get to know because our tenures overlapped. Thank goodness, Joe Weiss. And Joe was he was a gentleman's gentleman. I can't say enough good things about Joe. And it's so very fitting that the lobby of a courtroom named for Joe Weiss is named after D. Brooks Smith, because in many ways you cut from the same cloth. That acorn did not fall very far from the tree. What many people may not know, because he does not make a point of bragging about it or broadcasting the accomplishment, he has traveled to and done extensive work on the rule of law in many different countries, including particularly now Ukraine, where he worked tirelessly with what was then a fledgling democracy to help them build an independent judiciary and to establish personal relationships with the judges in that fledgling democracy to help them understand the importance of an independent judiciary and to build the kinds of institutional foundation that is necessary for an independent judiciary. He has consistently demonstrated a true commitment to an independent judiciary. And actually, I will diverge from this to say, and this is not commenting about the merits of the opinion at all. It's not an opinion, actually. It's a draft by one justice. But I fear that the judiciary's place in this democracy is not only under assault, but that assault has been intensified and will be intensified by the very, very troubling and perplexing leaking of a draft of an opinion of the Supreme Court a day or two, something that is totally unprecedented. It makes me appreciate even more how much we need people like you, Brooks, on the judiciary. And I know you and I have just discussed things you want to do as you narrow the number of tomorrows you have and increase upon the number of yesterdays. But I hope in one way or another you will always maintain, and I think you will, because that's who you are, maintain some contact with and influence with the federal judiciary and the state judiciary for that matter, which you are so much a vibrant and important part of. And therefore, it's such an important and wonderful honor for me to present to you this incredibly wonderful honor, the Judge Justin Johnson Award of the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. You have so earned it. Congratulations, my friend.
Thanks very much. And I always prepare remarks. It's a disciplined way of saying what I intend to say. It also assures that I don't speak too long. I don't have a prepared text that's deliberate, and I'm glad I don't. This is an emotional moment in many ways, made more so by the presentation by my dear friend Ted McKee. Tim Lewis is here, another great friend of mine and formerly my colleague on the U.S. District Court here. I'm proud to have filled the vacancy of the judgeship that was his, but I think Tim would tell you that Theo, as I know him, is a very dear friend. I don't think I'm overstating it to say we are on that court best friends. Thank goodness the public doesn't see, thank goodness our colleagues don't see some of the irreverent emails that go back and forth between the two of us. He is a wonderful friend, a wonderful, compassionate judge, and it's very, very meaningful to me for him to have made this presentation. It's an emotional time also because, again, as Tim knows, Paul Titus was also a good friend. This gathering has been an opportunity for me to connect and reconnect with friends and colleagues in the legal profession whom I have seen over the many years that I have been a part of judicial family and the legal family that is Allegheny County and that is Pennsylvania. Paul left us too early, even though he was not a young man when he departed this earth, but he was a lawyer who was a lawyer's lawyer because he enjoyed until the end being a lawyer. I've never seen someone bring such zest and enjoyment to actually practicing law, especially at a time that we see younger lawyers fleeing the profession because of stress and other pressures. That makes tonight especially meaningful. Another friend was Justin Johnson, and that makes this award meaningful to me beyond the bounds of expression. I first met Justin in 1985 when each of us were campaigning for election. I know I shouldn't bring up elections, popular elections for judges in this group, but I wanted to become a judge. What the hell choice did I have? But actually, each of us had been appointed by Governor Dick Thornburgh and then had to run for a full term in 1985. And we crossed paths several times, he campaigning statewide, I just in my county. And I knew that I was in the presence of a person, not just a judge, but a person of enormous dignity and wisdom. And that certainly turned out to be the cases, I got to know Justin better. And when I came here to the district court in 1988, I had the opportunity on a continuing basis to spend time with Justin and to get to know Livy well. They both became friends. And as this small world turns out to be, as I discover suddenly a cousin I didn't know I had in Philadelphia, a second cousin, believe it or not, you know, our grandparents, our brother and sister. I discover that Justin and Livy Johnson have good friends in my little hometown of Tyrone, Pennsylvania, the Primuses, and we talked about them. It's a small world, the connections, the friendships, the relationships, the people you get to know during the course of life. And Justin was one of them. He was an institutionalist in addition to being a great judge. And I think of that now as we see in the midst of so much division and rancor, institutions being damaged, as we've seen it just today, as my friend Ted McKee referred. Justin served in the military, in the Air Force. He served in the practice of law, as solicitor for school district here. He went on to be an outstanding judge on the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, along with others, hearing the name Phyllis Beck, whom I know as well. I've known her daughter in more recent times. I realize I'm getting old too as I recount those names and those memories. So I cannot thank you enough. I cannot express my gratitude, but also my sense, and this is not false modesty, my sense of being unworthy of this award, because in my many discussions over years with Justin, I heard anecdotal accounts from him of experiences he had in the military, elsewhere, of discrimination. And I realized that I have not encountered some of the obstacles that he did. But I learned from him. He was an example. He was an example of what a life in the law should be and how a judge should be and act and serve. And so, I thank you all very much. I express my great gratitude to Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. And at this time also, my thankfulness for having known Justin Johnson and Livy and Paul Titus. Thank you very much.
I hope I'm about to introduce Bob Hine. Yes, there he is, Bob, who is the president of PMC, and he and I are going to close out the evening. So, Bob, you first.
All right. Well, it's pretty hard to follow. I don't know. Are you hearing an echo? I don't know whether you're hearing an echo or not. But it's very hard to follow those remarks. These are exceptional jurists. I find, as I think so many of you do, inspiration from Judge Clark. Judge McKee and I have served together on a number of things, and just remarkably wonderful judge. And same with Judge Smith, just exceptionally wonderful jurists, and even better, just incredible people. So it's such a pleasure and an honor for PMC to award this to Judge Smith. Nobody has ever deserved it more. And with that, Tom, I turn it over to you.
I just, on behalf of the board of PMC, on behalf of Bob, on behalf of Lynn Marks and Maida Moore, Debbie Gross, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank PMC for reuniting me with some of my long lost friends, Purdens and Goodrich Amram and Corpus Juris Secundum. I miss you folks. Congratulations to Judge Smith. Thank you all for helping us invoke the memory of Paul Titus and Judge Justin Johnson. Congratulations to Constance Hope Long, our essay award winner. Again, thank you all for coming. Travel safely. I think the sirens we heard going off might have been tornado warnings. Is that what they were? Travel safely. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.